cold air sharp with dew. Your breath shows white for a moment, then is gone. The gate to the walled garden stands ajar, exactly as you left it last evening. Somewhere past the hedge, a blackbird starts up, testing the quiet. You cross the wet grass without needing to look down. You are the first up on the estate most mornings in June, and this one is no different. The roses have to be picked before the sun clears the east wall, while the oil is still heaviest in the petals, and every hour past dawn costs something the still cannot get back. You have done this for 3 seasons now, since you were given charge of the stillroom, and your feet already know the path across the wet grass without you looking down. A basket sits where you left it on the bench, lined with muslin. The air inside the walls smells of cold stone and something green just under it. Not yet the full scent the day will bring once the sun starts working on the blooms. The roses themselves are heavy with dew, bowed slightly on their canes, deep pink shading almost to red at the heart of each bloom. You choose only the fullest ones, the ones just past bud, the way you were taught, thumb and forefinger close to the stem, a small twist rather than a pull. Each one goes into the basket with the others, and already, even in the cold, the scent begins to rise off them, faint and sweet and slightly peppery underneath. A blackbird works the far hedge, unconcerned by you. By the time the basket is a third full, your fingers have gone pink with cold, and you keep going anyway, because the roses will not wait for your hands to warm. You work the row methodically, one bush after another, the basket growing heavier on your arm. The wall keeps the worst of the morning wind out, though you can hear it moving along the top of the stone, hunting for a way in and not finding one. Somewhere past the wall, a rooster starts up, then stops, then starts again, as if reconsidering. You fill the basket with petals rather than whole blooms toward the end, pulling them free where the flower is fully open, since the still wants petals loose and not stems. When the basket is heaped as high as it will safely carry, you straighten, roll your shoulders once, and turn toward the low stone building at the far corner of the walls, the one with the copper chimney and the single narrow window, where the real work of the morning is waiting. The stillroom door sticks at the bottom, the way it always does this time of year, damp swelling the wood, and you have to lift it slightly on its hinge to get it open. Inside, the air is colder than the garden, stone still and faintly metallic. The smell of yesterday's batch of rosewater still caught somewhere in the walls. You set the basket down on the long table and cross to the boiler in the corner, expecting to have to build the fire from nothing the way you do most mornings. The firebox is already warm, not lit, not roaring, but warm through the iron in a way cold iron never is. Radiant heat coming off it even before you open the little door to check. You crouch and look inside anyway, and find the coals banked low and glowing, fed sometime in the last hour, and left to hold rather than blaze. Someone has been in before you, tended the fire just enough to take the worst chill off the room and the boiler both, and gone again without a word. You are still crouched at the firebox when the outer door opens behind you, letting in a slice of colder air and the sound of boots on stone. Thought I'd get the worst of the cold off it for you, the gardener says, setting a folded sack of kindling by the wall without being asked. He does not wait for thanks, just glances at the basket of petals and gives a short nod, as if the fullness of it satisfies something. Good morning for it. No wind worth mentioning inside the walls. You tell him it saved you the better part of a quarter hour, and he waves that off with one hand, already turning back toward the door, more interested in the beds along the south wall than in being thanked for anything. He is gone again almost as quickly as he came, boots crossing back over the gravel outside, and the stillroom settles into quiet around you, just the low tick and settle of the boiler, and, faintly, birdsong through the one narrow window. You tip the basket of petals out across the long table, spreading them into an even layer, and begin sorting the bruised ones from the whole, working quickly before the morning heat starts to reach even in here. The copper still sits at the end of the table, tall and dented with use, its neck curving down into a coiled tube that runs through a trough of cold water. You have filled it perhaps 40 times now, and your hands move through the loading of it without needing to think, petals packed loosely rather than pressed. Water added to just below the mark, scratched into the copper by whoever used this still before you. The fire, already warm, takes only minutes to bring the water to a gentle simmer, and soon the first thin trickle of steam finds its way up through the packed petals and into the still's neck. You settle onto the stool beside it, elbows on the table, and watch the first beads of condensate begin to gather in the coiled tube. Clear at first, then faintly tinted as the oil starts coming through with the water. The smell that fills the room now bears almost no resemblance to the sharp green scent of the garden. It is rounder, warmer, sweeter, something the cold morning air could never have carried on its own. While the still works, you go to the shelf above the table and take down the ledger, a heavy thing bound in dark leather, its spine cracked soft from handling. You keep records here the way whoever came before you did, timing and yield and weather. One entry for every batch the stillroom has produced going back further than your own 3 years. You turn to a blank page to begin today's entry and stop. Someone has already written the date at the top, in a hand steadier than yours. Along with the time, you would have started the fire, and a note beside it. Petals heavy this week, less water than usual. Watch the second half of the run closely. It comes fast. You did not write that. You have never written in that hand before. But the advice sits exactly where you needed it, on exactly the morning you needed it. And when you check the still a moment later, the second half of the run is indeed coming faster than the first, just as the note warned. You adjust the flame down without having to guess, and the run steadies immediately under your hand. You finish the entry yourself below the older handwriting, noting the yield so far, and sit back to let the rest of the batch finish on its own. Through the narrow window, the light outside has changed, gone from gray to something with actual color in it, pale gold, catching the top edge of the wall. The boiler ticks steadily. The last of the steam works its way through the coil, and drop by drop, the finished water collects in the glass jar beneath it. Faintly cloudy, faintly gold, smelling of the whole garden, concentrated down into something you could hold in one hand. You let the fire burn down under the empty, still, once the last of the water has come through, and carry the full jar to the shelf, where the others from this week already stand in a row, each one labeled in your own hand with the date and the batch number. This one makes an even dozen for the season. The best run yet, if the color is anything to judge by. You cap it, set it beside the rest, and stand for a moment with your hand still resting on the cool glass, feeling the morning's work settle into something finished rather than merely done. The stillroom is fully warm now, no longer needing the boiler's help. Sunlight starting to find its way properly through the one narrow window, and lay a pale stripe across the floor. You gather the spent petals from the still into a bucket for the compost heap, wipe down the table, and leave the ledger open to today's entry, in case whoever tends the fire tomorrow morning wants to read it. You take the newest jar back outside with you, along with a stub of bread from your coat pocket you had forgotten was there, and find the low bench built into the garden wall, where the morning sun reaches first. It faces east, toward the gap in the hedge where the light comes strongest, and the stone is already warm under you when you sit. You uncap the jar and hold it up toward the light, turning it slowly. Inside, the rosewater catches the sun and throws it back in small shifting bands, gold sliding across the glass wherever the light finds a curve to catch on. Dust motes drift lazily in the same beam a little higher up, unhurried, rising and falling as the air moves around them. The light keeps traveling as the sun climbs, sliding slowly along the row of jars you left on the windowsill inside, touching one, then the next, then the one after that, each catching the same brief gold before the beam moves on and leaves it in ordinary shadow again. It is the same slow crossing every clear morning brings, one jar lit at a time, none of them lit for very long, the whole shelf taking its turn without hurrying through it. You break the bread in half without much interest in eating it, more a thing to do with your hands than actual hunger. The wall behind you is solid and sun-warmed, and the garden in front of you has gone fully bright now, every bush casting its own small shadow across the grass. Somewhere past the hedge, a cart passes on the lane, wheels loud on gravel for a moment, then gone. You do not move to follow the sound. The jar in your hands has gone warm from your palms, the light inside it shifting each time you turn it even slightly, gold catching one curve of glass and letting go of another. You could watch it longer than you probably should. The beam of light keeps its steady pace along the windowsill inside, jar to jar, unhurried, indifferent to whether anyone is watching it happen. It will reach the last jar in its own time. It always does. You lean back against the warm stone and let the sun find your face properly for the first time all morning, eyes half closing against it. The garden hums faintly with early bees now, working the same bushes you picked clean an hour before, finding plenty left regardless. The light keeps moving. It touches one jar, holds a moment, slides on to the next. Gold, then gone, then gold again somewhere else along the row. Nothing in the garden is in any hurry this morning, least of all you. The bench holds its warmth. The bread sits forgotten beside you. The bees keep working the roses you left them. Somewhere inside, on a sunlit windowsill, the light has almost reached the last jar in the row.